It has been said that waiting is one of the most difficult disciplines in this life. Like, in fact, it was Warren Wiersbe who suggested that true faith is being able to wait for the fulfillment of God's promises in God's time. But while we are waiting, I'll submit to you today that we ought also to be obeying. Right? Hebrews tells us that it was by faith that Abraham obeyed. Right? Hebrews 11, if we were to begin in verse 8, it says, by faith Abraham, when he was called to go out into a place which he should after receive for an inheritance, obeyed. And he went out, not knowing whither he went. And by faith he sojourned in the land of promise as in a strange country, dwelling in tabernacles with Isaac and Jacob, the heirs with him of the same promise. For he looked for a city which hath foundations, whose builder and maker is God. Abraham lived in tents and tabernacles because he was in a strange country. He was a stranger in the world. He had to be ready to move whenever God spoke, right? And while he was waiting on God's promises, he chose to obey, even though he didn't know where he was going. Now, I don't know about you guys, but I'm just guessing I'm not the only one who feels like a certain level of uncertainty right now. Right? I mean, thus far, like, I feel like I'm gonna need a mulligan on our shot at 2020, right? We got like this virus thing popping off, man. We got like Zoom schooling, lockdowns, essential, non-essential workers, right? Like quarantines. I'm trying to do Zoom youth group. You're trying to homeschool your kids at home, right? Like, I don't know when things will ever go back to normal or what the new normal will even look like, but I do know that my God is faithful, right? And I can wait in faith, because even though I'm unsure of where we're going in this world, I can by faith choose to be obedient to his word. See, Abraham obeyed when he didn't know the where, but he also obeyed when he didn't know the how. Right? Hebrews 11, if we pick up in verse 11, it says, through faith, Sarah herself received strength to conceive seed and was delivered of a child when she was past age, because she judged him faithful who had promised. Therefore sprang there even one, and him as good as dead, so many as the stars of the sky in multitude, and as the sand which by the seashore, innumerable. Right? And we're told in Hebrews that through faith, Abraham and Sarah, they trusted and obeyed in God to keep his promise, right? God had promised them that they would have an heir of their own, a child of their own. And it tells us that they would do this even though Abraham was as good as dead. That's pretty old, right? And I don't want to jump into the debate of like the writer of Hebrews. I'm not ready to get into that like argument here today, but I would suggest to you that he was a gentleman. Because while he says that Abraham was as good as dead, he says that Sarah was merely past age. In Hebrews 17, it actually tells us that she was 90 years old. Right? I mean, how on earth is this possible? I mean, how am I going to be the father of a nation, a great nation? I'm 100, she's 90. How is this even possible? But through faith, he believed and obeyed God, because he knew that God would fulfill his promises. Can I tell you something? Whether immediately or ultimately, God always fulfills his promises. Right? Numbers 23:19, it says, God is not a man that he should lie, neither the son of man that he should repent. Hath he said he shall not do it? Or hath he spoken, and shall he not make it good? I mean, in fact, Hebrews 6, when the writer's describing the certainty that Abraham had in his heart concerning God's promises, the writer writes in Hebrews 6 in verse 17, it says, wherein God, willing more abundantly to show unto the heirs of promise the immutability of his counsel, confirmed it by an oath, that by two immutable things in which it was impossible for God to lie, we might have strong consolation, who have fled for the refuge to lay hold upon the hope set before us. right? Like even though Abraham didn't know the where or the when or the how, he obeyed while he waited. Because he had faith in the one. Right? Like he didn't know the when, the where, or the how, but he did know the one. And it enabled him to have this faith that says, you know what? I'm going to obey God even though all this uncertainty surrounds my life. I'm going to obey his word because I know he will be faithful to keep his promises. And I'd submit to you, we can do the exact same. Right? Like we don't know right now. Things are so uncertain. But even in this uncertainty, we can be obedient, right? We can wait on God to fulfill his promises. We can be obedient while we wait because of our faith that we have in the one. And I just want to challenge you guys over the next few days, man, dive into the story of Abraham. You can find it in Genesis chapters 11 through 25. It's a little bit of a read, but I can promise you, it will be a great investment of your time.